All right, so welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking a bit about doing a pad replacement, like I said I would do. So I've got a collection of pads here. And what I've done is I've just written on the back of each, if I can get that to focus. I've written, so there's an 18.5, so that's 18.5 millimeter, because pads are done in millimeters, and those are clarinet pads. So I've written those up in, there we go, there's focus again. Written those up just so I know what size they are without having to remeasure them every time. When you're doing this, you want to either make sure you have the original label from the manufacturer, seller, whatever, or take them directly from a box where you've organized them, or use a pair of calipers. When you get down to 1/2 millimeter sizes, you really don't have room to make a mistake. The good news is that this is really a lot less troublesome than it seems, because you can dry fit everything and it's not a problem. So the other thing was, I think I'd mentioned before the inner mechanics of a pad, but here is the cardboard backing with some of the skin bladder falling off of it, and here is a felt from inside of a different pad. So we're coming back to that clarinet that we looked at before, and I discovered a couple of new issues with it. So we're going to tackle these one at a time. So as you recall, there were 2 pads to do. I'm going to show you one of them, because as I recall, I may not have enough of these. I actually had to do a quick job on a student's clarinet and may or may not have enough. We'll find out. We'll find out. I will get more pads regardless from my inventory later on if I need them. So we're going to disassemble the clarinet. So now, on this particular clarinet model, this is a Noble 45, this rod, that the key we want to change things on, is held in with 2 screws, not a rod of its own. Okay, so you have 2 little screws here. I'm going to put those back in their respective slots now that the rod is moved from there, so it's not going to be holding them, or they're not going to be holding it. And that's simply a matter of expediency for preventing us from losing anything, because it's the absolute worst when you lose pads, or sorry, lose screws that you need to accomplish this. So that screw, that rod comes loose. Here I'll use my flat pliers because I've got them. So I don't want to put scratches in this rod. That's why we use the flat pliers, because scratches in the rod mean that it doesn't run smoothly. If it's not running smoothly, then we can't get it to move the way we want it to. There we go. All right, so we've removed a couple of keys. That pad's going soon. That's the one that's frayed. That's the good one. So this one we're going to set aside. We're not going to do that one. Right now, I'm just going to do a dry fit. I think 17 millimeter might be good, not the 17.5, which is a boon for us, because that means that I don't have to worry about not having enough pads. Now, something that you should be aware of. There's a lot of different ways to attach a pad to the cup. The traditional way, and the way they come from the factory, is that they use shellac. Now, shellac is good at what it does. It does hold it in place, but it breaks relatively easily once it's dried out. The downside to shellac, of course, is that it does dry out fairly easily, and then you get pads falling out. To clean shellac out, you simply heat it with a, cigarette lighter, or you can use a pad cup heater. And a pad cup heater is going to function in a similar manner, where it just gentle heat and it loosens it, melts the shellac so that you can lift the pad out. And then you just clean it out, you put new shellac in, and you're good to go. However, shellac is also expensive. I know a lot of repair people like to use hot glue. Hot glue works, but I'm opposed to using it for a couple of reasons. And I mean, to each their own. If that's what you want to use, it's what you have to use hot glue. Don't get me wrong, that's fine. Go ahead and use it. The advantage to hot glue is you can melt it back out, just like you can with shellac. But the downside to it is that it tends to be rather bulky. Unless you have a very precise glue gun, you can't get a small amount in the pad cup, and because it's very thick, it tends to make the pad stick out a little more than maybe you want. Or you burn the heck out of yourself as you squeeze it out. Super glue is a hard no. Super glue, while it does get brittle after a while and will break out, I highly recommend that you don't ever use it. It just holds too well. By the same token, good contact cement is also a don't go there, because like the good LePage stuff or whatever, that stuff is too effective. It's too strong. I use the cheap stuff from the dollar store. It holds well, probably equal to or better than shellac, but it still breaks out pretty easily when I'm done. If I need to pull that pad because the pad got cut or something like that, it's easy enough to dig it out. And again, you can just scrape it out real quick with a screwdriver, and all that does, those little scratches on the inside of the cup, gives the glue something else to bite. So it's a win-win situation. These pads, I suspect, have been done with hot glue, but I could be wrong. So I just stuck a screwdriver down the side and in, and it's ripped the pad because the pad was already ripping and it's very brittle. So there's the felt and the top bladder coming off. And now it gets a little fun. I have to use the sharp flat of the screwdriver to try to dig this out. Now this is reacting the way I expect it to react when it's been hot glued. So when it's hot glue and you're trying to dig it out, it feels rubbery. It feels like you're having a hard time digging through it. You sometimes got to take a couple of cracks at this. So a bunch of layers of cardboard come out. There's still more in here. If you don't know what is underneath a pad, I highly recommend that you don't try to heat it out. I'm not sure how contact cement would react to that. I know the shellac and the hot glue react well to it, but I don't know that the contact cement would. Okay, so this is giving me a real hard go getting it out here. Yeah, it feels a lot like it's hot glue. So as soon as you know that you have hot glue, like this, that's where I switch to heating it out, because I'm going to spend 10 minutes trying to scrape this out with a screwdriver when I can just heat it out in 5 seconds. I have also put screwdrivers through my hand trying to scrape it out. So we're going to get a little lighter. What you see me doing there is just heating the face of the cup, or the bottom of the cup, so not the side that the pad sits in initially, and then I actually flipped it over to put the heat directly on the hot glue when I got through where the glue was. All right, so you want to be careful melting out any glue residue because the cup, understandably, gets very hot and that can hurt. There's a 16. And that fits. Yeah, that'll fit. That'll fit nicely. So that one actually pressure fit right in to the pad cup without any adhesive. Now the danger in that is that either the pad is just slightly too big, or what's more likely is that all this gunk on the inside, I just need to finish cleaning that out. So we're going to fast forward through that as I clean that gunk out. Okay, so don't worry about putting any scratches in the cup. That's okay, because ultimately it's going to let the glue hold. By the way, this other cup that we talked about before looks like a 17.5, does actually fit it nicely now that I've cleaned it out properly. So this one's going to take a 17.5. This one's going to take a 16. Remember, that's in millimeters. It's important because if you try to measure it in inches, it's not going to come out nicely. So I use really cheap contact cement. I find it works better for my purposes than more expensive contact cement, which holds too well. But I'm just going to put a dollop. I don't want to put too much in there. I just want a bit. And I'm just going to make sure that the cup is clean. So there's just a small amount of contact cement in there. That's really all it's going to take. I'm going to take the pad and just drop it into place. And then I stick my thumb on it and I rotate my thumb a little bit around. And what I'm doing there is I'm pressing the glue, the contact cement, into all the corners of the pad or of the cup. So as you can see, sort of there's a curvature to the cup. There's a little reservoir for the glue to sit in there because the back of this pad is completely flat. So that's now going to hold. We're going to let that set up, but it's not going to fall out because this is already a well-fit pad. And that's kind of what you want. So again, I'm going to put a dollop of contact cement. Take the pad, slot it into place, and then rotate my thumb, pushing it into the cup. And I'm just squeezing it in basically, but that rotation helps rotate the pad, push the contact cement around, and now I have a nice seal all the way around all the sides. So that key is now repadded. So what I will do is I will then reassemble the clarinet, and I'll use some elastic bands to hold those pads down so that the pad can do what's called seating. Now seating is where it forms, let's see if I can get a good shot of this. Let's see if it'll focus. Focus. we go. So you see that ring on the pad? That ring is the seating ring. That's where it meets with the tone hole. So we want to encourage it to seat. So to do that, we seal it up, and that helps make sure that the pad sits properly so that it'll have complete contact before the glue fully sets. That's for seating. This one, the spring does for me, so I don't have to worry about it. And now once that glue all sets up, we give it a play test, see how it goes. Thanks a lot, guys. Till the next one.